He is future first ballot Hall of Famer in the NFL. Charles Woodson here on the Rich Odds Show. How are you, Charles?
Rich, man, I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Before we get to, I guess, what you talked about with Epics, let's talk about a couple more recent items in the NFL docket. First of all, that Monday night game. It looked like a playoff game to me.
Wow.
We had Bobby Wagner on the show
Wow.
yesterday talking about the hits that were delivered in that game. You're a guy who's played in games like that. Did it look and feel like a playoff game to you, Charles?
Man, it certainly did, and I think Bobby hit it right on the head when you talk about the physicality of the game. And, of course, you know what the linebackers do and the defensive line, offensive line going at it. But I thought one play, man, from a veteran corner, one of the best in our game right now, Richard Sherman is getting blocked by Metcalf, I believe. And Metcalf came off the line very aggressive, got into Sherman, but Sherman fought him off. And then Sherman came up and made the hit. And, I mean, that was probably one of the best hits of the night, but it came from the cornerback. And I think that particular play right there, man, just kind of showed you what kind of energy level was involved in that game right then. And I thought that it definitely had that playoff atmosphere. I think it also had the element of, Richard Sherman having been on the other side in that locker room playing with those guys, and those guys having that mutual respect but wanting to beat each other. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was one of the better games I've ever seen.
I agree with you, and that's a lot coming from you right there. What's the most physical game you ever played in, Charles?
Man, I think probably anytime we played the Giants. I think the Giants always came with a physical mindset. They were one of the teams, I think, that played, with a more old school approach where they would line up in 21 personnel and, they weren't always concerned with, going 11 personnel, one back, one tight end, 3 wide receivers. They would like to line up in that backfield with Brandon Jacobs and Bradshaw, and they would try to pound you. And so, you had to tackle those guys. If you're a corner, yes, you had to cover your man, but you had to come up and make tackles in the run game. So it was always dealing with the New York Giants.
And was that more? We're seeing a photograph of you with chatting with Eli, but you're in a Raiders uniform. Was that Packers more often than not, or what do you think when you played them?
Yeah, Packers, man, playoffs, man. I had to see those guys in playoffs twice, and they beat us twice on the way to the Super Bowl. And so, those are 2 games that you wish you could have back. One was in the championship game, and they went on to beat New England the first time, and then the second time playing those guys, I believe, in 2011, and they beat us in the second round. We had a bye week, I believe, and they came into our house twice and beat us. But they were always a physical football team. It seemed like no matter when we played them, it was always the Giants. They were always the most physical team.
Well, Charles, after that Monday night game where, again, Seattle came up with that huge win, they matched both Green Bay and also now San Francisco with 8 wins. Somehow, someway, Atlanta got off the mat to spank the Saints in their own building, and the Vikings took care of business in Dallas. And so you got 3 8-win teams. You got 2 7-win teams. Who is the best team in the NFC right now as we enter Week 11 in your estimation, Charles Woodson?
Man, that's a tough question you hit me with, man. I would say out of the teams right there that you just mentioned, I gotta go. I think it's the San Francisco 49ers. I think right now. I just think because of their defense and the way their defense is playing. I think that Garoppolo, I think it's taking him some time. Coming off of that knee injury, I still don't think he's quite as comfortable as he was before he hurt that knee. But I think he showed some flashes in the game the other night where he seemed like he was. Just starting to kind of get his feet up under him, but then, Clowney and the boys started heating him up a little bit. So I think he still needs a little bit more time. But I think with the way their defense is playing right now, they're very opportunistic. You've seen those guys going after the football in the back end, creating turnovers. But they, give Seattle some credit with Russell Wilson. I mean, they just got a great quarterback. But I think team-wise, I will go with the 49ers.
So is Russell your MVP as we currently stand here too? Who's your MVP?
Oh, man. I love what Russell is doing. So I give him all the credit in the world. But this young guy, Lamar Jackson, down there in Baltimore, man, I think he is just turning heads right now with what he's been able to do this year. And the way he seems to just be out there kind of toying with defenses right now. I think with that team, man, if Lamar Jackson doesn't, turn the ball over down the stretch, and when they get into the playoffs, I think they're definitely a Super Bowl team. And if he's able to get that team rolling this second half of the season, the way he's been doing the last couple of games, I think he wins it.
And let's stay on this subject a little bit, Charles, because the concept of the sustainability deep into January of this offense is being called into question, I guess, because Lamar and this offense got thumped by a Chargers team that might not make the playoffs this year. What is your stance on the subject of that offense and the way it's being run and how viable it could be to win a Super Bowl this year?
I think it's very viable because I think they're multiple. They kind of keep you guessing with different personnel groupings. And the thing about what makes their offense so hard is when you're on defense, you don't account for the quarterback in the run game. So he's an extra runner. So what ends up happening is you get an extra blocker. So they run power run games, with Lamar and with him as the running back, which is you're not going to see from every quarterback. So it tests your discipline. And then with him, his escapability is second to none. I mean, he can get out of just about any jam he's in on the football field. And I think that you combine the run game, his escapability, and the fact that he has gotten better as a passer. I think he's another guy that's just getting more comfortable in the NFL, and I think he's making better throws. I mean, he has a really quick release, which I think is great, for an attribute for a quarterback to have. But like I say, for him, it'll just be not turning the ball over. And I worry about him more fumbling the ball than I do passing the ball. So if he just takes care of the football, from that standpoint, not fumbling, I think this team and the offense and what they do, I think they're going to be a tough out.
Well, I mean, the offensive coordinator for Baltimore is the same offensive coordinator for Colin Kaepernick that ended your Packers career. Your last game as a Green Bay Packer was that playoff loss to Kaepernick and the 49ers. What are your thoughts about Kaepernick's viability as a quarterback and this sudden arrangement of a workout by the NFL for Kaepernick for all 32 teams to attend on Saturday? Charles, what do you think about this news?
Well, I think it's about time. It certainly took long enough for a guy who's certainly talented enough to play in the NFL. I think, to me, the only thing that hurts him is that he's been out of the league 3 years now. So, what player are you going to get, for a guy who's been on a 3-year hiatus? I'm sure, he's still relatively young, hasn't had the beating he's had to take for the last few years, but still, that's a long time to be out of the game. But also, too, I think just going back to Lamar Jackson and working with Greg Roman, who I believe is the coordinator who worked with Kaepernick, I think if he is to go to a team, then you have to have somebody like a Roman that is able to utilize, what he's good at. And a lot of the things that Lamar Jackson is able to do, they were able to do when Kaepernick was in San Francisco. So, so now you're looking at him right now to maybe bring him into your locker room. But what are you going to do to utilize his talents and get the most out of Colin Kaepernick? So with that being said, can he play? Absolutely. I mean, we've all seen him play. We've seen him take his team to a championship game, seen him get to the Super Bowl and didn't win it. But he was able to do those things. He's been a good quarterback in our league. But now, having had 3 years off, what player are you getting now? So, kudos for teams giving him a look. But, man, they certainly waited long enough and perhaps, wasted some of this young man's talent.
Charles Woodson here on the Rich Eisen Show tonight on Epix at 9 Eastern Time. NFL The Grind, you and Ed Reed converge with Bills and Browns. What'd you learn about the Browns? You saw the win. They're now 3-6. What did you pick up or glean as to why this team is 3-6 as opposed to the reverse, as a lot of people expected, Charles?
Well, I had high hopes for the Browns going into the season. I think I was like a lot of people, with all of the talent, that they have accumulated onto this football team. I expected those guys to come out better, the first part of this season. But I think, what I learned from them from being there is they're really young, man. It's really a young team, and I think that right now they don't necessarily know how to win as a group right now. They did get the win, a big win for them on Sunday, but I just think collectively, they're struggling trying to figure out, who their team is, what they have, and how to utilize it. I think they're looking for a leader on their team. One of those young guys has to emerge as being the leader that they can all kind of rally behind. And I think for me, just being there in that short time, to me, I think Myles Garrett can be that guy. I know he's not a very vocal guy, but what I got from him, man, in the short time is that, I was there for a couple of hours and doing interviews and the whole nine. And after practice is over, he has to go get his massage. So I'm there, a period of time longer. But then when it's time to do the interview, he was done with his massage or whatnot. He went right back to the weight room. So here you got a young guy, man, who's 24 years old. I mean, he could be rushing out of the building to try to get home and do whatever. But he was still in the weight room, still working on his craft, still grinding. So I think if they're looking for, that type of leader on that team and somebody to follow, I think Myles could be that guy. So that's kind of my vibe from that young Cleveland Browns team.
And what was it like hanging with Ed, man? I mean, I've Instagrammed out a photograph, and there you are with your Intercept wine, a nice bottle of red, popped it open, smoking cigars with Ed. Charles, that was awesome.
It was epic.
It was.
Hey, man, we had a great time, man. We you know what, we just, you got two guys, man, that played the game for a long time, had a lot of accomplishments, but just still love to be around the game. We just got to, talk about, each other's careers and, how you see certain things and just kind of have fun. Like you said, smoke cigars. He's big into cigars. I have the wine, the Intercept. And so it was a fun vibe. We got to hang around young players, young up-and-coming guys, and hang out at a football game and just enjoy the moment. We've been inside those lines for so long, but to be able to just be at the game, be on the sideline, and watch the young guys go out there and do their thing was just a lot of fun for us.
So what's going to happen in Ann Arbor when Michigan State rolls into town fresh off of having lost to Illinois? Charles, what do you think is going to happen this Saturday?
Man, we got to send them home limping, man. We're coming off the bye, but we're coming off a win and then a bye, so our guys should be fresh and ready to go. I feel like our team is starting to play better. I think collectively, I think Shea is starting to play better from the way he started. Earlier in the year, the team had a lot of fumbles, a lot of lost fumbles. But I think people are in agreement that kind of the second half of the Penn State game, things kind of started to click a little bit, and then it rolled into the next week. So we're kind of looking at trying to keep that momentum going into this game against Michigan State. So I'm looking forward to Michigan going out here and dominating this game.
Well, you're
not just beating Michigan State, but dominating them.
Well, I mean, you're from the state of Ohio, and this is like brother versus brother, or as Hart called it, little brother
versus little brother versus little
right,
brother.
which created a big stink, and then D'Antonio came in and kind of flipped that script as he was first taking the job. It's kind of been a little bit different. Even with that punt that went awry in Harbaugh's first go-round with this rivalry.
Right.
You got a good story about Michigan State when you were there, about what it meant or what you heard about from Lloyd Carr at the time? You got a good one to give an example of what this rivalry means in that state, Charles?
Yeah, I mean, when you get there, whenever you get to a university, then you kind of really figure out, what it means. Of course, I watched it on TV as a kid, but when you're in the locker room, you truly understand, the dynamic of the game. And I think when you look at Michigan State, you have a lot of guys who are in-state who were high schoolers who got recruited to one school or the other. And so a lot of those guys, they really know each other. You know what I'm saying? They went to, play summer leagues together and different things like that. So it's a little, different with those guys. And so going into that game, I remember my freshman year, what am I, 18, 19 years old, I have these little braids that I have in my hair. And so, I was young and thought I was a pretty tough guy, cool or whatnot. But I'm going into this game, and they got Derek Mason, and I think Muhsin Muhammad. So they had some tough receivers out there on the field. And I remember, we get into the game. It's a tough game. It kind of goes down to the wire. But late in the game, I believe we were in like a cover two. I'm on Derek Mason. He comes off the line. I get a little jam, and then I sink. I think it was Tony Banks is the quarterback, too. Mm-hmm. Tony Banks throws the ball. I go up to intercept the ball. Game is going to be over. I got my hands on the ball, and the ball tipped off my hands. Derek Mason catches the ball. Eventually, a tackle him, get him down. But the game's almost over. There's only a few seconds left on the clock. The very next play, they throw a touchdown on the other side of the field, and Michigan State ended up beating us. So I'm pissed off because I let down all the guys on the team that this game meant something to. I went home that night, man, and for whatever reason, I just cut off all my braids, cut all my hair off, and just went and just cut it off, and said, you know what, that game is over. I'm done with the braids. This will never happen again. And that was the end of that.
So the anti-Sampson, you were stronger.
That was my freshman year.
You were stronger without the braids. Amazing. Stronger without the hair.
I was stronger without it. Yeah, I was stronger without him. Well, most people need the hair. I guess I didn't need it.
Well, take it from me, Charles. You don't need hair. Don't worry about it. I'm strong. I'm stronger without it myself too.
I'll take your word for it.
Charles, like I told you off air, I'll say it here too. You're awesome at being a correspondent on this show. It thrills me that you say yes every time that you're asked to do it, and I hope you do it some more. I can't wait for everyone to see your work with Ed tonight.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on, and everybody check it out. 9 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Right.
Epic channel.
That's right.
Me and the great Ed Reed. Hey, man.
I can't wait for it. It'll be you got it. And Intercept Wine. Check it out. It's great juice from Charles Wood.
InterceptWines.com. Check it out.
Charles,
3 bottles or more, shipping is free.
There you go. Charles Woodson, everybody. Charles Woodson, everybody. Thanks for the call, Charles. That's at Charles Woodson on Twitter as well as Instagram.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.